and a song about talking about movies. It's Roy on celluloid.
Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2, or as I like to call it, Hunger Games 3 Part 2, which is a little silly. I'll get into that later. So I'll start out with talking about me and the Hunger Games franchise. In 2012, when the original one came out, around this time, Jennifer Lawrence was becoming a star. She was not the household name that she is now, thanks to the Hunger Games franchise, but she had hits like Winter's Bone, which she got a lot of Oscar buzz for, and then she did really well with X-Men First Class. And I was becoming a fan. I was really interested in her, and she's a babe. That definitely helps. Total babe. The films came out, and this person I was seeing at the time, she was really into the books because, you know, girls are really into youth adult books, and I don't know why. I don't care to read the books. I like books. I don't have any problem with reading, and I like to sit down with a good book every now and again. More of a movie guy, but I do like reading. I'm not completely illiterate, even though I like movies, but I'm not going to read the Hunger Games novels because they're young adult novels. They're not directed for my age group, and they don't seem like something I want to read. However, I mean, I might read them now that I've seen all the films and just to kind of see how they add up. But prior to this, I had no interest, absolutely at all. But the first one came out, and I waited until it was at the second-run theater that I worked at the time, and I saw it for free. And I liked it. I thought it was pretty cool, and I've gone back and I've seen it probably twice since then, and it's enjoyable. It's definitely a good film. It has a couple problems in it, mostly with the camera work is really spotty. An example is the last scene, the big tense last scene where like the pigs are released or whatever. It's totally ruined, and I don't even know what's happening in that scene because the camera work sucks. Came and went, and you know, I was kind of sold, kind of not. And I was still a little on the fence. I liked it, but I didn't love it. And then I saw Hunger Games Catching Fire. That is my film. I loved it. I remember when I saw it in theaters, I was almost alone in the theater because I had seen it a couple weeks after release. And I paid for it this time. And I was just so taken aback by how good it was. And it engrossed me. I loved the second film. I especially love the ending. The ending is iconic to me, and it reminded me a lot of Empire Strikes Back and how it ended. And I adored that film. It was very good. It had fantastic characters, and they were much more well-developed than the first film. I finally started to be okay with PETA, and he was a big issue for me in the first one. And yeah, so the second one, I was like, yeah! Hunger Games! Awesome! And then the third one came out. I don't like the third one. I don't like it at all. Let me get into Mockingjay Part 1. I think that Part 1 and Part 2 in film, if you're taking one story and cutting it in two and making it into two films, that's bullshit. I don't like it. I'm just offended that this is a thing. It's taking one story and cutting it into two so you can make twice the money. It's bullshit. Excuse my language, but it's bullshit. And they did it in this film, and the reason why this is a key problem for me is you take one narrative and then you hack it up and you make two incomplete movies. And the third one did this, and I can't stand it. And it just feels incomplete to me. At the end of the second movie, things go down and it hits the fan, and you think it just sets up this amazing premise that never gets touched on until halfway through Mockingjay Part 2. Why? Why build me up like that and then spend an entire film talking about propaganda films and just doing all this stuff for character development, and the characters are already developed. These characters are great. Most of them, I hate their names. I hate all their names, but the characters I actually like, and I feel like they're well developed. But the third one just spends all this time with all this stuff that I don't feel like is necessary to the story. I don't feel like it moves anything along. And at the end of Catching Fire, I just wanted to get to the craziness that we didn't even get until halfway through Mockingjay Part 2. So Mockingjay Part 1, I don't like. If I have to break it down, it's going to be Hunger Games 1 gets a 3.5 out of me. Hunger Games 2 gets a 4.5 because that movie was fantastic. And then Hunger Games 3, Part 1, gets a 2 out of 5 for me. Yeah, Mockingjay 2, it starts out, and it's slow. It's really slow. I mean, it's not doing where I feel like the story should go. It's not focusing on things that I feel like should be focused on. And that's me, coming from a film lover, and someone who I feel like I've got a pretty good grasp on how stories should be told, and how narratives should be structured, and I feel like it was leading up to something fantastic by the end of 2, and they just throw all that away and just stagnate around and do all this stuff that is not very interesting to me, and they introduce more characters that I don't like. You got the guy with the man bun and the beard, and he doesn't talk, and he's really hip looking, and I can't stand the way he looks. And then you got the girl with the shaved head who's obsessed with shooting the propaganda films, and it just doesn't do it for me. Give me more Joanna. Give me more of that guy in the wheelchair. I mean, he was fantastic. That's one of the greatest actors alive. And he's just wasted in the third and fourth film. He's so good in the second one. Completely wasted in the third and fourth film. He's still there, but barely. Speaking on strictly about Mockingjay Part 2, don't have much Woody Harrelson. Don't have much anybody, really. You got an isolated group that's Katniss and Peeta and Gale and a couple other people. And it's fine, and once things start moving, and they start moving towards the plot, and getting to the point of the story, it gets good. It gets really good, and I don't want to spoil anything, because a lot of people take this film series very seriously, and I don't want to ruin anything for anyone. But once things start moving in the right direction, I was enthralled. I was bored for the first hour. I'll just be completely honest, and I hate saying that. I hate submitting myself to that word when I'm talking about film, because I hate being bored during films. And I will try to find excitement in anything, and I will try to find intrigue in anything. And I could not find it, and I felt like they were just moving it along, just to pad it out, and make 2-2-hour movies, even though this one was close to 2.5. And geez, it's just a blunt cash grab. And you know, I know what you're gonna say. I know what you're gonna say. That there's so much content in the book that they had to stretch it into 2 movies. That was everyone's excuse for Harry Potter. Let me break it down for you like this. I haven't read the books, but I looked online. Tell me why Catching Fire is 398 pages and Mockingjay is 397. And that works fine as a 2-hour and 20-minute movie. One movie. Ugh. But we got a lot of high moments in this movie. There's some great character development, and it really, really sold Peeta for me on this one. He was a slow burn. I did not like him from the beginning. In the second one, he got a little bit better. He was not really in the third one because it's half of a fucking movie. And then in the fourth one, he's finally comes into his own, and I finally really enjoy that character and feel like he got a full arc. And thank you, because I did not, like, he's such a key part of this story. I wanted to like him by the end, and I did. So, good job, movie. You did your work there. One of my biggest complaints with this whole series is Gale. Why does Gale exist? Is Gale there just so we know that Katniss had a boyfriend before she got into the Hunger Games? Because he does nothing. He literally does almost nothing in these films. And I feel like the only reason he's there is so we can have a love triangle. Which is bullshit! Yeah, so I'm sorry I'm getting so worked up, but it's bullshit, and it's just unnecessary padding, and it's just catering to what certain audiences want to see, and I'm not that audience. And the thing is you could have engrossed all kinds of audiences if you just dropped that. Or you could have just developed it a little bit better. And these films get so obsessed with sticking to the books, and honestly, I can't speak if they stick accurately page for page, word for word, how the books develop. I've heard that they cut some stuff out of Catching Fire, and they move stuff around, and whatever. But the fact is they're trying to make, in my mind, such a literal adaptation of these books that they forget that they're making movies, and that they have to be structured and narratively sound in the way that movies are. And I'm not saying that there's rules. There's not rules. My favorite filmmaker is Charlie Kaufman, and he does not play by any rules as far as structure goes. But narrative, if you're going to completely reinvent the wheel, you have to go all in. You don't just stretch things out and pad it out and do stuff I don't care about. I'm not trying to be myopic and saying that it's because it's not interesting to me. It's not interesting to anyone. But when I'm watching these films, I find a lot of this stuff to be obvious filler. So obvious, I would even compare parts of it to the driving episode of Dragon Ball Z, and that is the king of filler. Everyone knows that. Okay, I'm done raging about these films. Let's talk about the positives. All the acting's good. You get a AAA cast through and through. The only exception I find is the kid that plays PETA, but even then I found myself really enjoying him as an actor and really enjoying the character by the end of the film. The arcs work well, the characters are good, the characters are developed. The story at its core is interesting, and it's good, and it's well done, but there's just so much crap padding it out that doesn't need to be there, and that's just there to make these movies longer, and that's just there to, you know, sell the tickets and make the money. I don't like that stuff. It's just obviously lazy filmmaking to me. And Francis Lawrence is so all over the place with his style over these 3 films. He did Catching Fire and the 2 Mockingjay films. He's just really inconsistent because he was really steady. He shot it just like a perfect action film in the second one. And then he's using the shaky cam on the 3rd one. And in the 4th one, he's a little more steady again. And the action looks good. And, you know, I want to say it's a good film, but it just feels incomplete to me. And I gotta be completely honest, I wanted to love this. I'm just a glutton for dystopia, and I love all the anti-totalitarianism stuff. All that stuff's awesome, and that's why I latched onto this series, because it has all that in it. And when that's working, it's working well. It's working so well. You know, I gotta get down to the nitty-gritty. This might be a spoiler, this might not. I don't like that the film had 3 endings. It didn't have 1 ending. It had 3 endings. Padding. That's all I'm gonna say. Padding. Ugh. But I want to love this series. I wanted to, but now that it's over, I have to say that I give Mockingjay Part 2 a 3.5 out of 5. Somewhere along the same decency of the first film, but it never reached that high of Catching Fire, and that's disappointing to me. And overall, I'd give the series somewhere probably around a 3.5, because even though Mockingjay Part 1 did suck and did weigh the series down, it had a decent enough conclusion to where I wasn't unsatisfied with it, but I just felt like I had wasted a lot of time in stuff that wasn't necessary. And that's a sham, because it could have been so much more than that. And you know, the real shame of it is that I could see how this could work as just a 3-film series, and have 3 2-hour films, maybe 2 to 2:15 each, and then have the last one be 2.5 or 2:40. And it would have been fantastic if they did that, and it would have cut out so much of the fat. But you know, it is what it is. That's my review for The Hunger Games Part 3, Part 2. Thanks for watching.